Hi, Pastor Kip here. A few weeks ago, I ran into a colleague of mine from years back, and he was asking me about what life and ministry was like here at First Presbyterian Church Florence. And I was telling him all about it, telling him what great people you are and how we've learned to love and appreciate one another and to go forward in ministry together. As you may or may not know, I spent 39 years in ordained ministry in the United Methodist Church. I grew up in the Methodist tradition before I transitioned to the Presbyterian and Reformed tradition. Closing the chapter on that part of my life and opening this new chapter has been one of the most exhilarating and exciting experiences I've ever had. And I wouldn't trade it, I wouldn't change it. But this colleague of mine, he asked me a question. He said, "How did you know it was the right thing to do?" And he was happy for me, very supportive. But he still was asking me, "How did you know this was God's will for you? How do you know that this was the thing to do, the way to go?" Sometimes we have trouble discerning God's will, particularly when it's a major life decision regarding finances or college for kids, or maybe future education for ourselves, or job transitions, or divorce, or remarriage, all those things, big picture issues that have impact on us. We want to know this is the right thing to do. This is the right step to take. This is the right way to go. Is it part of God's will? And at the same time, we oftentimes don't have the clarity we would like. When I've heard people talk about God's will, sometimes it gets kind of comical and confusing the way some people think about God's will or feel that they have God's will in hand. I heard about this lady that every morning when she'd walk into her office complex, she would usually be carrying this big muffin that she had gotten from the bakery right across the street, or some other sweet or pastry. And when she announced to her friends that she was going on a diet, and one of the things she was going to do is not go to that bakery on the way to work. And they were all supporting one another and encouraging each other. And a few weeks later, she came walking in with this sweet roll in her hand. And as she walked in, they said, "Oh, I thought you'd given that up." She said, "Well, yeah, I did." She said, "But I really felt it's probably God's will today." "Oh, really? How's that work?" She said, "Well, as I was driving to work today, I was praying and I told God, how good I'd been doing about not going to the bakery. But I said, if it's your will for me to stop today, there'll be a parking place right there in front of the bakery." And there was. They said, "Really?" She said, "Yes." After I went around the block 4 or 5 times, there it was, right there open in front of the bakery. See what I mean? Is that really God's will? Does God really have anything to do with that? Probably not. Sometimes we want to think our decisions are really what God wants. It can be real confusing. We need to know that we have made the right decisions and that God is helping us with that, or that God is leading us when we don't know what to do. I'm confused sometimes about God's will. But I also have learned some things, particularly in my life transition, the one that I was mentioning a moment ago, the one that my colleague was asking about. How did you know this was the right thing to do? I've gone through a process of learning and education about God's will in my life. And I want to share some of those principles with you this coming Sunday. As I continue this current sermon series, did you get my text? Understanding 8 of the most misunderstood stories in the Bible, or at least some of the most misunderstood stories in the Bible. We will deal this Sunday with the 6th chapter of the book of Judges in the Old Testament, about a man named Gideon. Gideon was like you and me. God was calling him to do a special thing, to fulfill a special task. And Gideon wasn't really sure. It was his own imagination? Was he just hearing voices? And so he started really kind of playing games with God. I'll do this if you do that. And if you do this, I'll do that. And through that story, we discover some ways of discernment. That part of God's will is not walking a tightrope and then we fall off if we make the wrong move, but rather it's about walking a path. It's about a daily journey. It's about a discovery. And I want to share with you 4 things that I have brought into my life that have helped me know, or at least feel more secure in the uncertainties of life, that God is at work in my life. How do you find God's will? We'll talk about that this coming Sunday. Bring a friend with you. Oh, yeah, and don't forget about the Second Institute of Religious Studies on the Dead Sea Scrolls that will begin on May the 14th at 6 p.m. You say, "Well, I'm not sure I'm really interested in that. I would like to know more." Well, let me make a deal with you. Come to the very first session. I'm going to do this big overview in that first session, and I'm going to lay the groundwork for everything we're going to be talking about over the course of the 6 Thursday nights. Check it out. If it's not something you want to continue with, then don't come to any of the others. But if you want to stay with me and join me in the journey, wonderful. I'd love to have you. I just need to know you're coming so I can have a study guide ready for everybody and have plenty. You can register for the Institute either by calling the church office, go to the church website, and you'll see a link there for the Second Institute of Religious Studies, or out here in the Welcome Center, you can sign up right then and there. Either way, it's going to be an exciting summer that is yet ahead of us, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing you in worship this Sunday. God bless you.